Welcome back to Bear Down, part of the Coach Steve Show. We're a few days late, but that's okay because Zach was doing live scouting and live reporting at the Arizona game. And we are broadcasting on Election Day. So it is Election Day in the United States of America. One of our rights to go out and vote. So it is Election Day. And I guess the Election Day will be fire Matt Eberflus or don't fire Matt Eberflus. That's been the big question since Sunday, is voting to fire him or not. But Zach was live there watching the game, and the Bears got absolutely run over. Like literally run over.
They got roasted, but yeah, they got trampled. It's the best way to put it.
Like, I can handle losing as long as it's competitive, but that just was not fun. There was like no fight, there was no competitiveness, nothing seemed to go right. Even on defense, like normally when something doesn't go right, you can at least look at the defense and say, hey, they're doing a couple things, in the game. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't stop big plays. Arizona looked incredibly fast. Anytime somebody got the ball, they looked like a speed. Like, it was just nothing went right. Like, if anything had to go wrong, it went wrong for the Bears. Like, I think you said it perfectly. The Hail Mary hangover was real. Like,
it felt like it the entire duration of what I watched. That was all it felt like, was they just never got out of whatever funk they had from the week. Between that, kind of the Tyreek Stevenson drama, that whether it was the media or in locker room that they had to deal with, they just came out flat. I mean, it was embarrassingly flat coming out here.
Yeah, and at least when they lost to Washington, there was some fight in them in that whole game. This one just felt like they had no interest in playing. And then to give up that big touchdown run at the end of the first half, like with just a few seconds left, that's when I kind of knew. I was like, oh, they have no desire to even be playing today. They have no desire, whether it was looking over Arizona, whether it was they're still hung up on the Hail Mary. Because after that Hail Mary, turmoil started to happen in the locker room. You heard some, whether it's true or not, players questioning how they defended it and all this stuff. And then do they play Tyreek Stevenson? Do they not? Is he not in the starting lineup? How pissed is he? Blah, 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 blah. And then as the game is progressing, you just see less and less desire. And people put that back on the coach, which I agree with. You have to get them ready to play. But also the other flip side of that coin is you are adults, professional athletes. You should want to be out there to play every time.
Right.
But it just, because not even X's and O's. We could sit there and talk about the play calling of the offense, which I didn't think was great. You could talk about what they were doing on defense. But at the end of the day, they weren't tackling well. They weren't blocking well. Caleb Williams wasn't playing well. And I could feel an implosion happening. Like if this helmet right here is the panic button, my fingers are right here. Like, it's about to be pressed down, which is sad sitting here. What are we, 4-4 right now? And we have a rookie quarterback and all this stuff. But on paper, with who we have, we should not be hovering over the panic button right now.
Maybe. I don't think we should be. It kind of feels like it fell to pieces just last week. We were 4-2. Start going into Washington, kind of felt like that was going to be a loss and played them close. It's just the Hail Mary's been hanging over so much, not only like with the team, the media has been on it all over the place too this week. And I think that's also I think it's expanded the, concern and some of the just microscope on what is going on with this squad. And I get it. There were things at the end of that game that still can be brought up. Matt Eberflus doesn't take a timeout and just kind of lets things happen, while defenders have said, Jalen Johnson in particular, publicly stating they should have regrouped because they were confused going into the Hail Mary. Now we go into Arizona and you watch how this plays out. And I think what's crazy to me, defensively, pass defense, Bears have that locked down. I didn't know if Arizona was going to try to prod the run game the way that they did, and they did have James Conner is to many, I think, an underrated back. He flies under the radar as one of the better backs in the NFL, and they have, like you said, some speed guys. But somehow, some way, and everyone's talked about this too. Arizona's defense was a perfect setup as a get right game to go right back in and just kind of focus on calling best plays, fundamental football, and getting and dynamic pass offense going once more. 24th overall defense, but 26th in both offense in passing and rushing categories going in. And it just was seeming on paper, how can you lose? This is perfect. Offense gets going, defense just has to focus on, slowing down the run so that they play into a pass and pressure game. And there you go. And certainly enough, I don't know what's happened over the sense of 2 weeks, but progress reversed. I don't understand what's going on. And part of it, I'll let you talk about it, but I have part of it, what I believe is the issue. And I blame some of this injury stacked up badly at the worst possible time too.
Yeah, the O-line's not healthy. Like, everybody's banged up. The defense is banged up. The O-line's banged up. I also think, and this could be due to what the score was, but I think we said this before, if Caleb Williams has to throw the ball more than 30 times, we're in a bad position to win the game, and he threw it for 41 times. That could be due to the score, because Arizona scores 7 in the first and 14 in the second quarter, but you still, I think, have to run the football. But they weren't even running the football good enough. Like,
not efficiently at all.
Not efficiently at all. And they kind of reverted back to some of the zone stuff. So that's kind of where the play calling questions come in. But is that due to injury? Is that due to who do they have playing? Then another concerning factor is, I don't think Cole Kmet had a catch. I don't think he was even targeted.
He was 0 across the board.
Now, Odunze had a great game, 104 yards and 5 catches.
That's the quietest 104 you're ever going to have, because it was most of it off one wide open pass, which even that got scrutinized, because it's a lot of talk with Caleb Williams' deep ball accuracy has been starting to come up. And that was one where it was about an underthrow, where I've seen people now, they're talking, well, if he perfectly places this ball, this should be a touchdown. Odunze probably outruns or fakes out the safety, but because he has to slow down, safety and backside help from a corner coming back, which actually it was both the safeties, because Buddha came back under from coverage to tackle him. That's what stops that play, stops that drive.
And another thing that's wrong with these Bears, and it's been a thing the entire season, and now it's finally catching up to them, how slow they will start in the first quarter. How slow.
Oh my God.
And DJ Moore and a couple others have been on radio shows and have said this. DJ Moore, a couple weeks ago on a win, they won the game, but said this. He goes, for some reason, we're a team, top to bottom, that wants to dip our toes in. And we want to feel out the game instead of just attacking the game.
That's been an Eberflus trait, though, like since his tenure. They have never been great under him as a first quarter team.
No.
They never start fast with him.
He's what? 0 and something on the road.
It doesn't matter if it's Getsy or Waldron. They have been horrible as a first quarter offense.
Yes, and some of the time this year they have gotten away with it because it's happened in the wins, and they were surviving against Washington.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a game where it didn't happen that way. They could not survive it. Caleb Williams is showing his rookiness too. Now, again, I'd have to watch this film again, but he is missing some open guys. The O-line is starting to struggle again, but that's because they're banged up and you're starting to move guys into different positions again. And so I don't want to put all the whole blame on the O-line, but when you start moving guys around, they're a little bit banged up, and they don't practice sometimes, I believe. They're taking a couple of days off from practice. They're losing some of those reps.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going against a fast defense. I know Arizona doesn't have a high-ranked defense, but they had some speedy guys there on the edge and everything else.
Certainly surprised a lot of us. Didn't expect that at all.
But then there was also breakdowns. I think you and I literally texted. They showed there was a sack, and I'm watching Tevin Jenkins at left tackle. Now, he doesn't play left tackle. Like, he was at left tackle.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't played in a while. He's been inundated as a guard for now long now.
They were bringing an outside edge pressure with the defensive end, and the backer was blitzing. Tevin Jenkins literally stared at that backer blitzing and went to get the defensive end. That guy shot through the B gap and got Caleb Williams within that. And I'm like, what was he doing? But then I'm listening to people during the game and after. And I like this because I wish they would have done this with Justin Fields. They blame the O-line, like, you should overcome that and see this. The quarterback also should tell the pass protection. So if Caleb Williams starts to get rattled, is he calling different pass protections? Is he not changing it depending on how the defense goes? Because I could tell you that, like, high school, our quarterback has to tell my offensive line what the pass protection is based on the play and based what he sees. He could call a certain slide protection, but if he comes up and the pressure's coming from the opposite side, he can flip it, even if the running back's leaving we want the running back to leave away from the slide. So if the running back's leaving away from the slide, but the pressure's coming from a different spot, he can flip it no matter what happens. So I'm not putting all the blame on Caleb Williams in that aspect. I'm not putting all of it on the O-line because as an O-lineman, wait a minute, there's a B-gap blitzer or whatever. That's the quicker path to the quarterback. I should just stay here and let Caleb figure it out. But you don't know what's behind you. If he's calling a pass protection and somebody thinks that's going to get picked up or it's a hot, like, they don't know. Like, as O-lineman, you don't know all the time if there's a hot route or whatever it is. But a lot of that's starting to break down again. And is it because, and I think Matt Eberflus said this, like, Caleb Williams is banged up, he's frustrated, and, like, this is not typical. Like, this is not where we want him to be. And so as a rookie, you're getting hit. You're starting to get rattled. You're not playing well. You're putting pressure on yourself, which is what Tom Brady said and company. Like, you're putting all this pressure on these rookie quarterbacks. And we're starting to see rookie quarterbacks get benched as this year is going on, or like sophomore quarterbacks as it keeps progressing, you know? So a lot of it just did not work offensively. And like you said, a quiet 104 yards for Dudesay. I didn't know that. I was like, oh my God. Okay.
I mean, he was the most consistent part of that offense most of the day. And there's some pretty crucial drops in a few places. Keenan Allen didn't have a good day. I'll be honest with you. It's a little disappointed. He had 2 drops that I'm aware of from just off the top of my head. I mean, DJ Moore, I don't want to go right into this now, but like later as this week's gone on, there's I'm starting to wonder if he's going to be one of those guys that if things don't turn around, they may have, I don't want to talk about shipping out a guy, but somebody that clearly is, I think, starting to show more and more on the field that he is not a happy camper right now with how things are. He's trying his best to hold that back, but you can tell, like, it's near every other week. He's not looking too good on the sidelines. And you know what? Screw it. And this killed me because, like, so it's mid fourth quarter. Game's basically out of reach. I think this actually was the last Bears drive that was going to have any shot of getting points. They're already down 20. This is after the safety. And, well, here's DJ Moore, and it's a scramble. You know, Caleb's trying to keep the play alive. He's trying to see if he can get to someone. Eventually, he ends up throwing it, I believe it is to Rome Odunze on the opposite side of the field. Doesn't completely misses him. But what we don't see in that play, and is later revealed, DJ Moore is scrambling alongside. I don't know if I'm going to give him benefit of the doubt that maybe he thought this thing went out of bounds and that Caleb just ended the play. But it's kind of hard to see that when you still hear people looking at the play go, because he casually goes to the sideline and just walks to the bench, and it becomes a 10-man play. All of a sudden, play's not over. It's like a whole nother like 5 to near 10 seconds of running and scrambling.
Yep.
And this man has given up on the play. That's one of your veteran presidents. That's the guy you paid $137 million, multi-year extension. And he's bailing on the play. Credit's a blowout, but excuse me. We just got an Anthony Richardson last week for saying he's tired.
Which
That's
is
a tough
ridiculous.
look. That's a very tough look. It's not being talked about as much right now because of a lot of the stuffs around Caleb and talking about how the Bears have this complete train wreck of a schedule coming up after the Pats game this week. Like, that's been a big distraction. But locally, a lot of local fans and some of the media have noticed that was not a good look.
That's not it. Like, excuse me, you're getting paid 130 some million dollars. They're not paying you 130 some million dollars to walk off the field and go sit on the bench, no matter how frustrated you are. Right.
Yeah, that did not. I mean, that was that one. That's one of those where I'm like, oh boy, here we go.
And the big talk is the locker room. And that happened last year. Like, is Matt Eberflus losing the locker room? But we saw clips where it didn't seem like it. And now it's getting brought up again about him losing the locker room. Is it starting to happen now because you have more of a veteran presence in DJ Moore, a big veteran presence in Keenan Allen, a veteran presence in DeAndre Swift, and
Mhm.
others? And then the media starts talking about it, mainly local media, I would say. Some, like Rex Ryan, I think, talks about it a little bit because Rex Ryan's a coach. Just do it. He understands. But they're talking about it, saying, like, look what happened with Tyreek Stevenson. Now DJ Moore has walked off the field. There's no energy from this team, this game. And
Yeah.
sometimes you just have a bad game. So I think that's why some people have said this. Now a day or two has gone by. They want to wait and see what happens with the Pats game and go from there, which I agree. I think that's a reasonable ask is let's play the Patriots. If this same thing is happening, then you could really amplify these questions of the locker room, the energy, what's going on here, because he does seem like a player's coach, especially when he was just a defensive coordinator. People love him.
So you kept
But
hearing, you
but
know.
winning cures a lot of things. So while they were winning on this couple games, we haven't heard a lot of this. Now that this has happened 2 games in a row, you start to see the cracks. And I heard it somewhere saying somebody feels bad for Matty Eberflus because he's trying really, really hard. He's trying really hard to keep that locker room together. He's trying really hard to do these things. It's just not working. It seems like it's not working. And, everybody seems to like him as a guy. And this is never going at him as a guy. It's just sometimes it doesn't work. And you're seeing other teams take action. They fired the New Orleans Saints head coach. They fired Luke Getsy, an offensive line coach, and
Yeah.
somebody else with the Raiders. And so that's the big talk is fire him now. Fire him now.
But
And
that's not going to happen. We
no, the
all
Bears
know that's not going to happen.
no. The Bears don't fire coaches in the middle of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you have the Patriots coming up. Now,
2-7 squad, you can get to 5-4, and it's even more winnable than the Cardinals matchup, at least on paper. Another
right.
rookie quarterback, a rookie
Now,
head coach.
could the Bears make history? And if there's no energy and effort versus the Patriots, no energy and effort versus the Packers, which I don't know how that's possible because the Packers, you shouldn't even have to say a word to the Bears players.
I mean, I would hope to God you show up at least for the Packers. Minimum need to show up for those.
But let's just say with the Patriots, Packers, Vikings, and Lions, more often than not, you're seeing this exact same thing. Can the Bears make history and make that decision? Could they do that? I doubt it, but it is quite possible that they make that decision. But the thing that I want people to realize is if you make that firing right now with a 4-4 squad, you're taking a gamble risk of things getting worse. And so what I mean by that is,
well,
I know the defense played bad, but you are getting rid of a good defensive minded guy right now in the middle of the season that can fix some of this. Hopefully, and we're about to find out if he can fix it. So that's your first gamble. Can those assistant coaches call a defense the way Matt Eberflus does? And I think it's very well respected around the entire Bears fandom that he's still a good defensive coach. I think so.
He still
Then
is.
You're taking then another gamble of can whoever you make the interim head coach, can they rally around and play? Or are they going to kind of do the same thing Matt Eberflus did? Because that's what normally happens. You're an interim head coach. You're going to kind of do the things you want to do, but you can't change everything because it's the middle of the freaking season. Now, as we go into 4 or 5 games from now, if it's the playoffs are out of reach, you can then make that decision and say, let's just tear off the Band-Aid. He'll find another job, probably a defensive coordinator, and do a really good job. But that's the questions people are having right now. But I just want people to pump the brakes on the firing. Now, if we were going right into that that meat grinder of a schedule right now without the Patriots, we could be having a different conversation. But I think you got to give them that game to see if we can fix it.
Yeah, well, it's the last game. Oh God, yeah. What if they lose? Well, I mean, you're gonna hear it from everyone. It's all like it is amazing how quickly the de-escalation went. Hail Mary was one thing, but then again, the Cardinals were considered this very much on the same plane of team. Very much a winnable contest. So New England, if you go and you at home, by the way, mind you, this isn't going. You aren't going to Foxborough. You're going to be down there. It's in Soldier Field, downtown Chicago, in front of the Bears faithful. That would be ugly, and it's a Pats team that's clearly on a rebuild. It's clearly on a restart. Rookie quarterback again, first year head coach. Yes, guy's been in the system forever, but Gerard Mayo is brand new to this thing fully. So they were going in with kind of some up in the air expectations anyway. Chicago, complete different story. Remember, I still, at least, to me, this should be a 10-7 playoff team with what they had assembled. Credit, injuries are one thing. So got to keep that in mind when you got your nickel corner, you got your essentially your free safety and your best edge rusher out last week, along with both your tackles in some way, shape, or form going out or being out.
Yep.
You're kind of in a pickle, and that does not help the situation whatsoever. Credit New England started trading some pieces away, but I don't know. Kind of makes me think. What I do worry about, though, and this to me is what stands out, and I don't know how teams haven't keyed in on this more regularly. Washington finally did, and Arizona took it to heart. That interior line in Chicago is not built for run defense. You know what they did the entire second through fourth quarter when they stopped. They could get some passes off. Sure, Kyler's flexible enough to go get some passes away, or they did dump offs a lot. But what they did? All they did was pull 1 to 2 guys every run play.
Yep.
Smash out at least TJ Edwards, whoever was sent to go and kind of clog the middle up, and maybe Gervin Dexter most times. And they just freaking blew those guys out, A-B gaps, and just let Connor or that DeMarcado kid, they just let him go. Hit the hole. That is all they did. And they just said, hey, if you got to stop us at some point, right? They never did. That's all the Cardinals did. They basically said, try and beat us. We're doing the same thing. When are you going to stop us?
But that's what we said at the end of the year. What's going to be the weakness of this defense? The interior's got to prove themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And
pass game wise, it is. But when you put it where it's down hard nose running, good teams with good setups have blown them out of the water. Washington used that playbook fully last week with a good quarterback performance overall by Jaden Daniels. Teams have used it for quarters this year. I remember week 1, you and I talked about it. I don't know why Tennessee bailed on their run game first half and then proceeded not to, because Pollard had 82 yards in the first half, Steve, in that game. That was a massive red flag week 1.
Even
teams have just not stuck to that game plan.
Texans didn't stick with it, and I thought they could have. The Colts even, teams just did not stay with it. I would say arguably the only teams that kind of stuck with it were the Rams, and that's why it was a close game. Commanders, and look what happened, and Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's because, well, I do know why. Us offensive coordinators get bored and we want to, get creative and, we get told what's open in the pass game because of the run. So then we get to that and then we get frustrated if it's not working. And then we go, well, let's get back to the run. Well, then by the time you do that, that defense is energized and fired up. And then all of a sudden it becomes they can stop the run.
Oh, sure.
But if the Cardinals, well, like the Cardinals did, they saw the run was working and said, hey, wait a minute. They can't stop us. We have a fast quarterback who can throw the short game pretty well. Um, we can run inside zone with him, and he'll probably keep it and get you 4 yards. So now they're worried about that. Let's see if that works.
I
And
wonder. I wonder.
and then, oh wait a minute, we have a tight end that can catch 3 really good balls, and they can't stop him. We have another like, oh wait a minute, like like yeah. And then you were just kind of hoping the defense. One thing with the Bears, you always kind of hope their defense will figure it out. And they kind of did in the third and fourth, hold them to 3 points, and then another 3 points, and we get the dumb safety for the chop block. So they sort of kind of did, but by that point, it's almost too late because then if your offense is struggling, then it's just too late. And it just, again, it felt like no matter what they called, no matter what they did, go to tackle them, nothing was working.
No.
And sometimes that happens. Man, my Bears team and Illinois team are the exact same freaking team because Saturday was the same thing. No matter what Illinois tried to do, it just didn't work. And then they were marching down the field to score, and then they tried to get a 2-point conversion to tie it up. 3-man rush, punches the ball out, and Illinois loses. And then the Bears play like this. Zach, it just was not a good sports weekend. I lost my playoff game Friday night.
Minnesota kind of bullied you guys too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not good. My team lost Friday night, and then I'm like, oh, I'll be okay. Illinois will beat Minnesota. Well, then that didn't happen. And then I'm like, okay, maybe it'll be a competitive game versus the Cardinals. That didn't happen. And so I'm about to put my application in to be a Lions fan for the rest of the year so I could be happy and joyful because it's, again, I can handle losses. The Hail Mary sucked. I think what overshadowed the Hail Mary was Tyreek Stevenson.
Yeah.
But how competitive it was on defense and stuff, depending how we lost against Washington, I'd be okay with it. I'm not okay with this. If it was 29-24, but we were competitive, okay, hats off to them. But 29-9 and you can't score, move the damn ball. Not even scoring.
Yeah. Well, it just looked like we went back to square one. You cycled back to the opening weeks of the season again after you thought you had found some ground, after you thought you had found some sort of momentum is the deal. I just saw that comment too. This is how players play when they want a coach fired. And, that's something that's going to be analyzed. I'm telling you, like I said, seeing DJ Moore, like I said, that whole thing being found a day after the game where fourth quarter, again, this was when the game was pretty much out of reach, him just casually walking off the field. And even if you want the excuse of him might have being stepped out of bounds, again, he can reestablish, he can keep on fighting that play. Man just walked off and sat on the bench. Yeah. That's one of your veterans, that is your superstar, $100+ million multi-year receiver that said, you know what? F this play's over. That's scary, man. That's not a good sign for a locker room right there.
Especially when during the season you've seen some of his frustration, but it's just been like the flexing, like, come on, man, like that type of frustration we haven't seen. Like, I like DJ Moore. He scores one game, he had those 2 touchdown catches.
Athletic freak, but I think he's a man that thought he should be getting numbers this season. And it's just not.
But he's also a person that's kind of said, okay, as long as we win, like, I'll help us do what we can.
And he has, but You can definitely say year over year, this is not like last year for him right now.
But then the announcers made a interesting point. Is Keenan Allen frustrated? Now, Keenan Allen's not a guy that is going to have DJ Moore numbers, but his numbers have significantly dropped when joining to Chicago. Now, you knew they were going to drop because you have Swift and you have DJ Moore, you have Cole Kmet, now you have Odunze. So obviously there's going to be give and take in certain situations.
Yeah.
But his catch numbers have completely dropped. So they keep talking about, is he kind of frustrated? Is Swift getting frustrated because of the run game? And maybe play calling, I have no idea. Which all of that is not good to begin with, but it's extremely not good because your rookie quarterback's going to see this.
Yeah, I guess my thing is how do you backslide so quickly and out of a bye? Like, keep in mind, all this is coming out of a bye week that we have seen complete derailment of what was an upward momentum 4-2. Oh my God, we're making the NFC North look that much better type of team. And now, like I said, it's weird. How does that happen out of a bye week? I get that you have a flat week out of the insanity that is the media coverage week to week. But again, we go back to Washington. Even if you consider how good that is of a defense and a turnaround that they have done with Dan Quinn and company over there, you just have to wonder, extra week shouldn't have any sort of an effect like that.
No.
And somehow that has carried over for 2 weeks now. Again, New England can be that get right game, but I am just baffled that you have a complete reset out of a bye week.
I said this last week.
That's an endearment to good coaching if you can have consistent player reset. To be on the good side of what I feel like is upward momentum and to come out flat, I mean, that's just terrible preparation in my eyes. It's either that or, we go back to Cole Kmet's talk after the loss against the Commanders about the whole, some of us aren't staying focused to the full picture or whatnot, and in practice, we're not fully there, or something along that line that he was on. Just got to wonder.
Yeah. But then it kind of comes down to, as a coach, how do you get that back? And it didn't happen. And, I hate talking about firing coaches because I don't know the grind of like an NFL coach and what they do fully.
Yeah.
But from the little that I do know, it's hard to sit there and say fire him because I don't know if I could go do a better job myself. One of those situations. Like, could I go in there and it's easy to talk. And that's why, I'm sure Adam Hogue could go in there and fix it. Absolutely, he could. Adam Hogue's the best. He'll go in there and fix it.
Well, he's a coach too.
Oh, he's a coach at a private school where they can recruit the best of the best and doesn't have to go through what I have to go through at a public school. So he can kiss my ass on the private school shit.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
man.
And he doesn't work with the kids during the school day. He just shows up for practice and leaves so they can all kiss my ass. I got to do grade checks. I got to make sure they got food. I got to make sure they got, counselor to talk to. I got to make sure they got social work. I got to make sure that they have a freaking belt because, they might have lost. Whatever. But anyway, so that's why it's hard for me to sit here and say, fire him. But this has been a common theme for the staff, is these type of situations. But this is like the final, not straw, but the final form here, where even though we were losing, defense still showed life, offense would still have a little bit of fight. The one thing we could always fall back on for Matty Eberflus is at least they're going to go out there and be tough and everything else. This game, nobody was to that level. And so this is the final form of, if this happens again with the Patriots, I mean, he has fully lost the locker room. Like that comment, this is how they play when they want a coach fired. I'm sure they all love him as a person. I'm sure they all love what he brings to the table for defense. And again, he took over a complete rebuild, right? You're starting from scratch. But now But now you're at a point where it's no longer scratch. It's no longer just the plywood. I think you've got drywall up. I think you've got this
This
up.
is year 3. This is the
Yes.
thing. This is the 3rd year. You know, we can talk about Ryan Poles because there's been some of those critiques this week about, and I don't want to talk about it as much because I still think some of the injuries are playing a lot of this problem. But discussion on, you know, the lack of investment in certain places or going more money ball in certain places, aka the offensive line in that regard. But you know, that is going to be questioned. Bears players tackled like they were playing a preseason game. I mean, at times, yes, it definitely, like, being there in person. That's not the Bears team I watched on TV through the first 6 weeks of the season. I don't know what's changed. I mean, even against Washington, like, that's the defense I expected. And again, they just got bullied. Like, Arizona came in with a game plan, like, and basically said, we're just going to bully them. If we can't get the passes going and get Kyler going and get him enough time to where he can find guys, which, I mean, you know, 154 yards still held him down, but they just let James Conner loose. That's all they did. They let their running backs loose and they pushed guys out of the way. Strongest man wins. Get low wins. Basics of football.
They held Kyler Murray, but when you're running the football well enough and the defense is holding them, you don't need to pass. He only threw it 20 times. He was 13 of 20. That's still pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, he still made crucial plays. He still had passes that were impactful. There were some that were just great plays. Actually, funny enough, Tyreek Stevenson had one of the best pass breakups of the day. It was a Marvin Harrison Jr. catch that would have gone for like near 30 yards or something, or like it was like 25. I think it was 3rd quarter. And he actually had a great breakup. He put his arm in there and basically just ripped that thing out as they were rolling onto the ground. So, but again, that unit's fine. It's just there's not much big boy or big meaty guys up there right now that are these guys that can anchor in. You know, again, Zach Pickens hasn't been really able up there unless you have Andrew Billings in there all the time. You know, you just kind of target who's not there or who's the weaker side. And, you know, Dexter's not really that guy. That's just it, you know, and generally it's him in there or whoever else they have is not really capable right now to be a very quality run stuffer at this time. So it's something to pay attention to because teams, if you think it's bad with Arizona now, and if you didn't think and say it wasn't something that they were going to look at tape for teams later, I mean, all 3 of the NFC North teams have really damn good rushing options. I mean, you got freaking Montgomery and Gibbs in Detroit. Josh Jacobs in Green Bay is having a heck of a season that's really being overshadowed by Derrick Henry right now. And then Aaron Jones hasn't aged. He missed like a game and a half, but he's still doing stuff and still causing damage. He was a nightmare for Chicago and Green Bay for years, and he still is that way in Minnesota. So if you think this is a problem for this 1 week and, you know, Washington doing its thing, you know, don't think this isn't just going to be a one-off. I mean, even next week, Ramondre Stevenson's right there in New England, and he's definitely that type of guy. New England's going to try and wear you down. They're not going to be stupid. They're going to play that game to help Drake May. So I know that team's inexperienced, but that's going to be a thing they'll lean on in tape, is that they'll look to get the weakest part of that middle of the D. I'm just saying.
You took the words right out of my mouth. When you're going up against a team with a new head coach, rookie quarterback, and they just saw the team you're playing against has a bad or played really bad in the run defense up the middle, guess what they're going to do? They're going to run the ball up the middle to try to take pressure off their rookie quarterback, which is what I was liking with the Bears. They were running the ball well, which took pressure off of Caleb Williams, and he was playing well. When you start to put all the pressure on him right now in the NFL, this ain't college. He could handle it in college. It's the NFL. You can't do it now. So now when you put all the pressure on him, he's got to throw it 30-plus times. It's not going to go well. And we saw that. It did not go well because that offensive line is not built to throw the ball 45 times. They're built to run, pass, run, pass, when they're healthy. And I think that can't be overstated, is the injuries.
When they're healthy.
For all The only healthy part we have is the wide receivers and running backs. Like, they all seem to be pretty healthy. But when the O-line's not healthy and you're moving guys around every so many plays, and then your defense is banged up, like, it's not good. Like, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's just gonna be overly analyzed now moving forward. Again, happens to be 6 weeks, things are turning around. All of a sudden, the wheels feel like they're at least falling off the tracks, and a lot of it's just like the doom and gloom of what's ahead.
Well,
But I mean, now keep in mind something else. I don't want to start this too early, but we have to consider this. Say the worst case scenario happens. Like the main scenario that is revolving in my head right now is Chicago is not as good as what we thought coming into the season in terms of expectation. Finishes last again, third straight year in the NFC North. I mean, that's got to be where you decide. And I hate being in continuing a cycle that's already being perpetuated where we have a lame duck coach that might go out. But that is a real possibility. I mean, 3 straight years at the bottom of the division. How is that? Where do you then go in the offseason? Again, hypothetical here, unless things turn around, which I hope they do. Hypothetical. How do you go to a podium at the end of the year, whether you're Ryan Poles or the McCaskies? And after last year, where you had a little bit of a run to save his job, that you'd go and do it again if you finish 4th in the division for a 3rd straight season in what is now the most competitive division in the NFL at this time.
You know what they'll say? We appreciate him taking over, and we decided to rebuild and try to keep the glue and the tape together and try to get this to where it needed to go. And we saw glimpses of it, just wasn't able to keep it going. That's what they'll say. They'll say it just, something didn't click right. We liked what he was saying. We liked what he was doing. It's just sometimes it doesn't resonate with certain players, and we feel like we brought in the right talent, but then it just wasn't working. But we do appreciate that our defense has these stats and doing this. We could not get it all to fit in one game, and that's what they'll say. And Ryan Poles, that's exactly what they're going to say.
You may want to clip that and see how close to accurate that is if that day comes. Again, hopefully things turn around. I still think this is a 10-7 team, but I'm telling you, I don't know how the hell you come out of a bye week and you revert back to the ways of old. Again, I don't know how that happens. It's just amazing how momentum works, I guess. But I don't get how that happens.
I don't either. And I was worried about, I think I said this to you. I said, what I'm worried about with the bye week is that you're so hot right now that you go into a bye week.
You did say that. You're not wrong. I remember you saying that specifically on this show.
Because bye weeks are good for I wish the bye week came right now because they're hurt. That gives them 2 weeks to get healthy. And now you're not going to have a bye week until after the Lions game. So you got to play the Patriots on the 10th, Packers on the 17th, Vikings the 24th, and then 4 days later play the Lions for Thanksgiving. 4 days later.
Yep.
Then you get a bye week, and then you got to play the 49ers at the 49ers, mind you. So you have to go to Detroit, then to the 49ers. So bye weeks are good and bad. They're good because it lets get their legs under them a little bit, especially if they're playing tough opponents. Like, I'll give you an example. I keep going back to Illinois, but Illinois played a lot of ranked teams this year. So their first bye week came off of losing to Penn State, but they had to play a ranked Kansas. They had to go to Nebraska, play a ranked Nebraska. Then they got to go to Penn State. The bye week came at a perfect time to let guys get their legs under because they were physical games. I know the NFL is physical in every single game, but comparable to other schedules, like the Bears were fine, right? Like, they had all the momentum in their defense, all the momentum in their offense. You beat the Panthers and the Jaguars. Like, no offense, like, this wasn't you just played the Lions, Vikings, and not even the Packers. Let's say you played those two teams and you played, I don't even know, the Steelers or something, where it was now you need this bye week. Another bye week's good for injuries and to get healthy. And so that's what I think I said that to you. I'm worried about the bye week because are we going to keep the momentum with a rookie quarterback? Now, if it was Peyton Manning in year 8, you're okay with a bye week because Peyton Manning can find it. Tom Brady can find it. Can Caleb Williams find it? And it's not just him. I'm not putting the blame on him. But but then you think, okay, you can start the game slow because of the bye week, but you'll find it at some point during the game. You'll find it the game after. So that's the big concerning part. I'm not blaming the whole bye week, but good God, like to fall off
Well,
like that.
it goes back to that, right? I mean, it's easy. It's the easiest common denominator if you wanted to just jump straight into there.
This is an interesting comment because I was going to bring it up when the moment was right. Because Ben Johnson was just at the podium saying that he loves calling offense. If he becomes a head coach, he's calling the offense. So he's promoting himself now. And this report did come out that Ben Johnson did flirt with the Bears. He was staying with it. But either the Bears didn't want him, or he just wasn't ready, or he liked what they had going on in Detroit. But if that hypothetical happens, do they run at Ben Johnson, who has no head coaching experience, but is an amazing play caller?
Well, they, now credit. If we're going to compare apples, if we're going to try and compare somewhat apples to apples here, I'm going to bear with me.
I guess not Eberflus had no head coaching experience either. So that's the other part.
No, I'm not talking that way. I'm talking if we're going to dive back, and last offensive head coach the Bears had, Matt Nagy. So we're going back, going to spin the clock back,
Oh God, let me stretch for this one.
And credit 2018's a kind of a outlier year in the Nagy era, but one thing we talked about with him, another play caller. I think the difference here and why I am feeling like this could be the route if they are able to have it open again comes down to the availability. Hopefully Eberflus turns it around. But if the hypothetical happens, the difference in that is we talked to him. Nagy at the time was given kind of that free reign to be considered a coaching candidate after a very select amount of games for one season. Yes. That he was allowed to basically call plays for Andy Reid's offense, which is a very tightly run, we run the system our way type of scheme. Ben Johnson has been doing his thing and his thing only since he came to Detroit under
Still my thunder.
I know I am, but you and I are thinking the same thing. It's been him and him only. He's helped develop and grow his offense his way. So that's the difference. If you want to start with a pure offensive guy, someone who has purely done it his way or the highway, that's where you go. Now, what gets questioned is how does he manage a team? How does he manage stuff that's head coaching? You can be a great coordinator. This is where Matt Eberflus comes in. You can be a hell of a coordinator in this league. He is one of the best defensive coordinators in this league by far. If he was to leave Chicago, he would be hired on the spot for a team that has garbage defensive properties right now. But he's terrible at coaching. And Arizona was a prime suspect game again, showing that this man has not been great at what head coaches need to be. Time management, timeout management, game decisions, going for it on 4th and 10 with an entire quarter left and you're down 2 scores was mind-boggling to me. After you converted a 4th down.
The first 4th down was awesome.
And it was short. I get it. Okay. You have to start upping the tempo, but Steve, that one hurt me. It was 4th and 10. They went into the end of the quarter and had time to think this one through. Right. And I went, there's no way. They totally showed a front. They're going to come out here. They're going to punt, flip the field with Torrey Taylor, and work it that way. And no, they came out of half, and you can maybe blame partially. You can blame this on offense coordinator if you want to, but remember, these guys talk on the sideline. This also has the head coach's staple on it as well. Why do you do that? The extra time for it too is what kills me. The situation kills me.
Yes.
And that is a damning feather in the cap of this man does not know how to properly head coach. He is a fantastic coordinator. I praise the man's defensive coordinating skills ever since he was in Indianapolis. He is fantastic. He is not a good head coach. It's why I've been on the fire train since last year and why I didn't want to start the season with him as the head coach. Because he's shown he's not capable of being good at those properties. He's a great coordinator, not a great head coach on game day situations.
He's a great coordinator, and I feel like he builds good relationships with those players. That's what he's good at. And that's awesome. That's an awesome thing to have as a coach. Not a head coach, just a coach. That you get along with the players, you build those relationships, offense, defense, special teams, whatever it is, and you're great at calling defense and making adjustments on defense. Now I want to go back to Ben Johnson. I've been thinking about this since Sunday. You brought up a very good point that I was going to bring up. Matt Nagy was hired because, like you said, just a couple games, but you cannot convince me that he was calling the plays fully. That Andy Reid is the guy. He has that play sheet. He's always talking. Andy Reid is calling those freaking plays. Number one. So when Eric Bieniemy and Matt Nagy leave, they have a couple successes in a couple games, but then it becomes adjustments and trying to do this and trying to do that, and they're not good at it. They were not good at it. And we've seen that. We saw that on full display. Ben Johnson is building that offense with him and Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell, I believe, was never like a play caller. He was like special teams, which is why I think he's become a very good head coach, because I think special teams coaches are the best because they have to work with everybody. So that's what's given him the success here. But Ben Johnson has adapted the offense to what he's had, and he's making those adjustments with him, his offensive staff, and Dan Campbell. But Dan Campbell is just being a head coach. Like, he's going to give his inputs. He played tight end in the NFL, but he's kind of letting them do their thing, right? But he understands exactly what the defense is doing. He understands exactly what the offense is doing. But Ben Johnson is doing it kind of like Dan Campbell's not calling the offensive plays. So the success they're having is due to the players, but they've built that up. Remember, they wanted Dan Campbell fired like year 2 because it just wasn't. They didn't think it was going well. All of a sudden,
I remember mid-season they talked to Mary Ford, and her response was, "Look, this thing's got to be. We got to do it by the book and do it methodically and right, and take your time." Now, credit, that's where the skew happens. We did that whole song and dance last year, is the thing, and what resulted was, and at the time, I get it, they rattled off a majority of their back half of their season wins. They finished 7-10. They found a way to adjust their offense. Things were looking sharp. They fell apart against Green Bay. That was the test that to me was like, okay, how are we looking this offseason with the quarterback situation? That was part of it. But they finished 7-10. It's good enough for the Bears front office and the ownership.
But Lovie Smith went 10-6 and got fired.
Well, okay, and I see that. Look, that's been reflecting around the internet. That's been reflecting around the internet since I think Matt Nagy was let go. But even Trestman, 2 seasons in, they're like, we let go of 10-6 Lovie Smith for this, and then it's been like that ever since. John Fox, catch him in his lame duck years. Matt Nagy, you have a one-off in 2018. NFL catches up to what he's doing. Mitch Trubisky wasn't the guy. Things completely degrade. Vic Fangio, well, I don't think that was part of it. You got to admit, Vic Fangio leaving hurt a bit of the defensive prowess they had year over year in 2019. I mean, it's been that way. And then Matt Eberflus, it's just been, can we get a winning record?
Yeah.
For a season? We're back to almost I won't say perfect comparison, but I don't know. Kind of feels like this whole John Fox era, like just treading water, waiting until we hit that one good year,
Right.
and flip this
But
bad boy around.
but what's curious with like a Ben Johnson, if we get to that point, we hope that the season turns around and we can have some fun this year. And then they, even if we do win some games, do they have that conversation anyway and just kind of say whatever? But the Ben Johnson thing
Well,
is
yeah. What's the threshold to keep to keep your job?
right,
That I think that's the question. Is it
right.
another 7-10 season? Like maintain the same
If,
course?
if he has
You
a
know?
7-10 season, he's fired. I think he's fired because if they were questioning it last year and we go 7-10 again this year or 8-9 or whatever it is, and you're having the same conversation, you got to pull the plug.
Mm-hmm.
If we make the playoffs, does he keep his job? And we kind of go from there like, hey, he made the playoffs. It's there, blah, 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 blah. But if we don't, I have a feeling it's not going to go that way. I don't want it to, but I just have this bad feeling. And if you entertain Ben Johnson again, what I'm curious, back to the Matt Nagy stuff. Matt Nagy, Eric Bieniemy prove that the phrase I love to hear was, if you want the same result in the kitchen, you need the chef. And when people hire Eric Bieniemy and they hire Matt Nagy, you don't have the chef in the kitchen, right? You don't have Andy Reid in there.
Yeah.
Same thing with Bill Belichick's coaching tree. They want Bill Belichick stuff. But when these guys go, for some reason, it just doesn't work. And I've always wondered why it doesn't work. The only one that's worked is Nick Saban. Like Nick Saban coached with
Yeah.
Bill Belichick, and that worked. That's the only, because they're like the same person when it comes to a lot of that stuff.
Difference is that he was way more receptive to the college scene and basically being like, I'm going to be your guide, but I'm going to get you where you need to go. It's because I think Saban, and credit if I'm wrong, he's talked about how like his experience in Miami, it's like college players, versus pro, like pro, they're already there. It's more professional. Like you're getting paid money now. It's a different respect feel when in the NFL scene, whereas in college at the time, credit different now with NIL, but like, it's like, I'm hungrier. I'm trying to be mentored by you and trying to live up to your expectations on this while also,
Right.
it's more of that relationship's more tied together that way. I feel like you're doing different jobs in the locker room between the
Right.
two areas of football. And
But with the
it sounded like Nick always did a better job with what the college players needed in
right,
that sense. Plus, he has
right,
freedom to go and recruit whoever the hell he wants. There's no front office,
right. Now with Ben Johnson, we got to be careful. We're gonna if this happens and they hire him, they're gonna hire him for two reasons: offense, and can you run it like Dan Campbell? And you got to be careful with that second one
Well, I don't,
because,
the intensity factor, I don't know. It's going to be hard to match anything Dan Campbell intensity.
but like the monitoring
No.
of the roster, how they've created it, like what went into it, how does practice set up? They're a tough team. Like that's going to be the second part they want to hire him for.
Yeah.
Gotta be careful with that because that's what I was circling with the Matt Nagy's and the Belichick stuff is you have to be careful with that second one because you're going to hire Ben Johnson to be Ben Johnson. Now, if I'm Ben Johnson and I've watched what Dan Campbell has done, you are going to take some of those things with you. How he talks to the players. Maybe that's why Ben Johnson's so good is because Dan Campbell has let him become a good coach and has mentored him that way. I think it'd be a good hire, but as fans, more likely, you got to be careful with that second point. Is he would come in and have a great offense because we've seen it, but that part of it, you got to be careful with, and that's kind of where I was circling with this. Is that's where the question becomes: do you get an experienced head coach, or do you go with a guy like this? We and for depends on the situation that we see ourselves with. I think you go with they should have hired an experienced head coach. This is my opinion. We've done this ass backwards. When you're rebuilding and it's a culture and whatever, that's kind of where you have to bring in an experienced head coach that has done this before. And then if it works out, great. If it doesn't, kind of like where it is right now, at least you brought in a guy that could help you glue it together and do this and do that, and then you go get this. We've kind of done this ass backwards where you hired a guy with no head coach experience to build this thing who hasn't built this thing besides a defense. He's built defenses, but you don't have that. Now
Right.
would be the perfect time if shit hits the fan to bring in now a younger guy that's hot right now with calling offense and doing that.
Watch them miss on Ben Johnson and hire Cliff Kingsbury next year. Where they'll be like, you know what? Your tenure in Arizona had some bumps in the road. Kyler got hurt often. We'll give you a shot.
I didn't even think of that. So that's kind of curious.
Like, think about this man. This man got let go from Arizona, took a trip, went to USC, and has built himself back into the NFL, and is the talk of the town over in Washington right now because look at Cliff Kingsbury doing his job. One of the best OCs in the game. He's working with a rookie quarterback.
And he's already been a head coach in college. He coached Caleb Williams in college.
He coached Caleb Williams at USC. That was the rumor coming in. Maybe the Bears could snag Cliff Kingsbury before they got Shane Waldron. Which credit, Shane Waldron, up until we've seen lately, QB whisperer guy, and he's not been doing that, but just makes you wonder. I'm just saying that's floating out there. If you're wanting to go the vet route, technically he's a veteran coach that's had at least middling success, and you could claim some of the success was derailed because of injury seasons that Kyler sustained. I'm not saying that's the ideal route, but that is, if I am thinking as a Bears office and I can't get the big, and say they do let go of Eberflus and you can't get the big prize, come on, you can't tell me that's going to be the consolidation that they aren't going to consider. If Cliff shows any interest.
Who would
I want? I want Ben Johnson. If I'm being honest, I think the fact that he's been able to run the whole show helps. So you have a system that works for several years now. He's done it his way. I think there's that. That's the top candidate. If we were to do a hypothetical right now, because this is hypothetical. This is, as I called it on another show, this is speculation zone. Okay. This is nowhere realisticville right now. It'd be him. But I know in the back of my mind that if Cliff Kingsbury is interested, that if they can't get Ben Johnson, they will talk to that man and go, you know what? One thing he's got over Ben is the coaching experience. He coached Arizona last time, and unless those interviews with like ex-Arizona execs go horribly wrong to vet this man, do not be surprised if he is an option they look at. I am just going to tell you right now, that is something I will clip right now. If this man becomes a Bears head coach next season, if Matt doesn't turn this thing around, I will throw my hat in the air and be like, the shock is very, I'll sarcastically go, my shock is sky high at this moment.
And another thing I think about often that the Bears screwed up with in the offseason, there was a particular Michigan head coach that was trying to get back to the NFL.
There was that talk, and I mean, man's 5-3 right now, dedicated to run game, allows to help Justin Herbert take pressure off him.
He's also a quarterback whisperer.
He is that too.
And I think about that often. And I'm like,
but to do that, you needed, and I hate doing this whole game. I hate this game that I play. To do that, you had to regress. That's the killer. You don't want to lose, but you also realize that certain things and certain paths are chosen when stuff happens. It's harder to fire a coach, especially Chicago, who I think someone brought up on X that Chicago is a team that is content with not throwing money away on firing coaches early. 7-10 is good enough.
Here's my message to the Bears front office.
Several more games wins than last year.
The Bears front office, You listening right now, Bears front office? There's a phrase I like to use from time to time. A coaching guy I know in high school has written books, and this is the title of his books: Adapt or Die. And you are not adapting, and that means we're dying.
Oh man,
It's not 1985 anymore.
I wish it
It
was
is
easier.
2024.
I wish it was just that easy where it's like, look, there's candidates out here. If you really want to get a rookie QB, break the cycle. But no, they didn't break the cycle. We're back into the same cycle. Like I said, unless Matt writes this ship in what is this just, and I hate to keep banging on the same drum, but like, unless this man writes the ship in the second half of the season, I cannot see a world where he stays in that seat for 3 straight last place division finishes with a rookie quarterback with tons of pressure on him to be the next prodigy being drafted first overall. It's too valuable to waste another year with him under there unless they get a good end of the year. So about to find out. New England's where you got to restart, got to get back in gear.
Yep, and we'll do our best to talk about that later on in the week as it progresses here, and more stuff comes out. I guess to end it, Khalil Herbert is now gone, traded off for a draft pick.
Happy trails, bud.
Happy trails. It was not that long ago, a year or two ago, where you and I both sat here and we had high hopes for Khalil Herbert. He did have some flashes in the run game. I thought he'd be a good punt returner, kick returner type of guy, like Darren Sproles was back, not quite to his level, but just something similar.
Yep.
We saw him get phased out a little bit with the signing of Swift, Roshan Johnson kind of doing his thing, who I think the Bears have to give the ball to a little bit more, but that's just me.
I wish that they flipped it around with them more, man. But yeah, I'm with you. Sorry, continue.
But yeah, Khalil Herbert now traded off for another draft pick. Seemed like the right thing to do. Hopefully he can get some more reps out there and have a better career for himself, because he seemed like a hard worker, just didn't work out. So happy trails, Khalil Herbert. Yeah, that's all I had. That's the only other news.
Yeah. No, I mean, there were talks that him and Nate Davis are on the chopping block. And credit, I don't think the deadline's done just yet. But those are the two that were getting talked the most. And well, once you saw early in the season that they realized they need to switch personnel up, because he was active the first 2 weeks of the year. And then once Homer went down and then they started kind of feeding Roshan Johnson a little more, and they realized, oh, wait, Swift basically plays the same role that Herbert does. We need that bigger, bulkier back that's the goal line back, and maybe like a change up. That's where, the fate was sealed at that point. It's either you sit him all year and make him a backup, or you get some sort of value. 7th rounder is not crazy, but it's something back. It's something you can use either as maybe hopefully a prodigy pick, if not a trade asset. It was better to get him somewhere where he can go play and we can get some sort of value out of him. It's too bad though, because I really thought he was the next guy, and it's just, you can be a good back in this league, but you also anymore, got to be able to block. You got to have some of those fundamentals if you're going to be an every down guy or closer to that. And he just did not possess those skills. That's the only thing that hurt him.
No. To end it, I want to end it on a positive note here. I'm going to give an update on the election. I'm going to share something here. An update on the election.
It is election day after all.
In Michigan, Dan Campbell is winning by 91% in the voting.
Give this man the presidency.
He is winning by 91% in Michigan. So that's my positivity of the election.
I love that. I love that little headshot photo too.
You really thought it was going to be something about the real election, didn't you?
Nope. I did.
I just saw.
I'll plead ignorance, or I'll plead not ignorance. Sorry. no curtains. I am definitely thought you were going to pull some sort of map up. That was good.
Nope, not. No, this is football related, man. I love Dan
True,
Campbell. If
true.
Dan Campbell ran
You
the
got a whole evening to follow the politics of what is happening.
yeah, I just thought that'd be great for everybody. I think everybody would be in agreement
Yeah.
if Dan Campbell ran everything.
America United on Dan
America
Campbell.
United, and we would take out people's kneecaps.
Dan Campbell, take their kneecaps.
Nope. I just wanted to end on a positive note. Dan Campbell is so far winning in Michigan, so we
Love it.
can leave it at that. And in Illinois, Matt Eberflus is now like -2%. Like that's where we're headed right now.
Man, he lost votes. They found votes at his place and they took him away. What are you doing with these, bud? I'm gonna go and confiscate those right now.
Yes, but nope. We'll be back hopefully later on in the week to talk about Bears versus Patriots at home. Hopefully they get it turned around. If not, more talks are going to come out about our head coach and see what happens there. And hopefully they get turned around. But that wraps up this one. Thanks everybody for watching or listening. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys when we come back to talk about the Bears and Patriots.